The 1980s were a glorious kind of chaos for motorcycling, a decade when Japan's Big Four went completely off the rails, building machines that made no financial sense but every kind of emotional one. Engineers don't worry about balance sheets or safety systems. They built bikes that terrified test riders and thrilled everyone else. This was the era of 6 cylinders, turbochargers, 2 strokes that screamed, and styling that looked like it came straight out of a science fiction comic. It wasn't about smoothness or comfort. It was about adrenaline, noise, and attitude. Today's motorcycles might be faster on paper, but they've lost something in translation. The wild spirit, the raw connection, the sense that you were riding something alive. So let's go back to the decade when too much was just a starting point. These are 17 motorcycles from the 1980s that were so good, so fearless, and so far ahead of their time, they still made modern bikes look tame. Number 17. Yamaha FZ600, 1986. The Yamaha FZ600 never screamed for attention, but real riders knew what it was. One of the most honest and balanced sport bikes of its time. While the rest of the industry chased displacement and horsepower, Yamaha quietly built a bike that thrived on agility. Its 599cc inline-4 made just over 70 horsepower, but the way it delivered that power was magic. Smooth, direct, and perfectly matched to its lightweight steel frame. The FZ600 handled like a thought. It dove into corners effortlessly and rewarded riders who value precision over brute strength. It wasn't a garage trophy or a marketing experiment. It was a pure rider's machine. No electronics, no nonsense, just a chassis that taught you how to ride well. If Yamaha reissued this bike today with the same simplicity and feel, it would embarrass half the modern middleweights drowning in ride modes and menus. Number 16. Kawasaki GPZ 1100, 1983. Before the Ninja line made Kawasaki a household name, the GPZ 1100 was already setting the tone for what performance meant in the 1980s. The bike was a bridge between eras, the last of the big air-cooled bruisers and first to embrace fuel injection. Its 1089cc inline-4 pumped out around 108 horsepower, which was massive for the time, but what really stood out was how smooth and responsive it felt. Kawasaki's early digital injection gave the GPZ razor-sharp throttle control, something riders in 1983 had never experienced before. It was long, heavy, and brutally fast in a straight line, but it had a raw honesty that's missing from today's bikes. You didn't rely on modes or traction control, you relied on instinct. Twist the throttle too hard, and it would happily remind you who was in charge. If you wanted to earn speed instead of buying it, this was your classroom. If you're already enjoying this trip back to the wild 1980s, make sure to like the video and hit subscribe. And tell me in the comments which of these classics you think could still humble a modern machine. Number 15. Yamaha RZ350, 1984. The Yamaha RZ350 was proof that you didn't need 1,000 cubic centimeters to scare yourself silly. Just 2 strokes, a kickstarter, and a pair of lungs big enough to handle the noise. This 347cc twin made around 60 horsepower. Not much by today's standards, but in a bike weighing nearly 320 pounds, it felt like holding a live wire. When the power band hit, it didn't climb, it exploded. It was a hooligan's dream, sharp, twitchy, and always daring you to go a little too far. Yamaha's YPVS system gave it just enough civility down low before chaos arrived up high. Riders didn't call it fast because of numbers, they called it fast because it felt fast. Modern middleweights might be quicker on paper, but they'll never match the RZ's wild heartbeat, a mix of smoke, vibration, and that unmistakable 2-stroke scream that made every ride feel like a race. Number 14. Suzuki Katana 1100, 1981. Few motorcycles have ever looked as shocking or as futuristic as the original Suzuki Katana 1100. When it debuted in 1981, it didn't just turn heads, it snapped necks. Designed by the German firm Target Design, the Katana looked like a weapon that had accidentally come to life. Sharp edges, angular lines, and that chopped tail gave it a silhouette no one had seen before. Underneath the styling experiment was an 1100cc inline-4 making roughly 108 horsepower, and it delivered that power like a punch in the ribs. Sure, the handling was old school and the ride could get sketchy if you got greedy, but that was part of the thrill. The Katana didn't hide its flaws behind electronics or comfort, it celebrated them. Modern bikes are refined, the Katana was raw. It was speed and aggression wrapped in metal and attitude, and even now, no motorcycle looks or feels quite like it. Number 13. Kawasaki Z1000R Eddie Lawson Replica. 1982. The 1980s had plenty of fast bikes, but only one looked like it had just escaped from a racetrack. The Kawasaki Z1000R Eddie Lawson Replica was built to honor AMA Superbike champion Eddie Lawson, and it wore that title with pride. Painted in blinding Kawasaki lime green with gold wheels and a bikini fairing, it looked every bit the street-legal racer was. Beneath the flashy skin sat a 998cc inline-4 tuned for sharper response and mid-range punch. About 100 horsepower of pure hooligan energy. This was a motorcycle that didn't whisper speed, it yelled it across the parking lot. The throttle was immediate, the torque addictive, and the sound pure trouble. Every ride felt like you were breaking the law, and maybe that's why people loved it so much. The Z1000R wasn't built to impress critics or accountants, it was built for riders who wanted to feel alive. Number 12. Suzuki GSX R750, 1986. When the GSX R750 arrived, it didn't just raise the bar, it set a whole new one. Before it, sport bike usually meant a standard motorcycle with some clip-ons and a fairing. Suzuki threw that idea in the trash. The GSX R750 was a race bike with lights, built for people who actually wanted to feel like racers. Its 749cc inline-4 made around 106 horsepower, but what really mattered was its weight, just 388 pounds. That was unheard of in 1986. Suzuki ditched the steel frame for aluminum, added wind tunnel-tested bodywork, and gave the world a bike that felt like a scalpel in motion. It was precise, violent, and unlike anything else on the street. The GSXR demanded attention and respect. It didn't care about comfort or compromise. It was the original superbike blueprint, raw, direct, and thrilling in a way most modern sport bikes can only simulate with electronics. Number 11. Yamaha RZV 500R, 1984. If the Suzuki GSX R750 was the start of the modern superbike, the Yamaha RZV 500R was the last gasp of pure two-stroke insanity. This wasn't just inspired by Grand Prix racing, it was a GP bike with headlights. At its heart was a liquid-cooled 500cc V4 engine making about 88 horsepower, but what really mattered was how it delivered it. Below 6,000 RPM, it hummed politely. Past that line, and the world blurred into a haze of sound, smoke, and adrenaline. The RZV 500R was Yamaha's street-legal love letter to its YZR 500 race machines. Featherweight frame, razor-sharp handling, and that unmistakable scream when the power valves opened. It was mechanical chaos perfectly choreographed. Modern bikes might be faster, but none of them make you feel like you're taming something alive and unpredictable. The RZV 500R didn't want to assist you. It wanted to test you, and that's exactly why riders still worship it today. If you've made it this far, you're one of the real ones. The kind of rider who actually gets what these machines were about. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of this countdown, because from here on out, the bikes only get faster, wilder, and way more unhinged. Number 10. Honda VF 1000R, 1983. The Honda VF 1000R wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a statement that Honda could out-engineer anyone. Born from their endurance racing program, this limited production machine was essentially a MotoGP bike with mirrors. Its 998 V4 engine made around 122 horsepower, but the real masterpiece was the gear-driven cam system. The sound it produced wasn't a growl, it was a mechanical symphony that no chain-driven motor could ever replicate. The VF 1000R was overbuilt in every sense. Aluminum frame, aerodynamic fairing, and the kind of fit and finish that made rival manufacturers jealous. It was heavy, sure, but it carried itself like a tank wearing a tuxedo. Even today, the craftsmanship stands out. Every bolt, every weld, every polished edge screams precision. It wasn't cheap, it wasn't practical, but it proved that engineering excellence was an art form. Modern bikes might be faster, but few have ever felt this special. Number 9. Suzuki RG500 Gamma, 1985. The Suzuki RG500 Gamma wasn't just a motorcycle, it was Suzuki's middle finger to the idea of restraint. This was a genuine race machine barely tamed for public roads. Underneath its sharp fairing sat a square-4 500cc two-stroke engine that made roughly 95 horsepower, and a bike weighing under 400 pounds. Those numbers don't just sound impressive, they defined what a street-legal Grand Prix bike could be. When that power band hit, it was instant chaos. Below 6,000 RPM, it felt harmless. Above that, it was like someone lit a fuse. The RG500 didn't accelerate, it detonated. You didn't ride it so much as survive it, and that's what made it magical. No computers, no traction control, no apologies. The Gamma was everything we've lost today. Dangerous, intoxicating, and alive. Even now, twist the throttle on one of these and it'll remind you why riders used to grin instead of scroll. Number 8. Kawasaki GPZ900R Ninja 1984. When Kawasaki unleashed the GPZ900R, it didn't just start the Ninja legacy, it rewrote the entire sport bike rulebook. This was the first motorcycle to truly combine raw power with real-world rideability. Its 908cc liquid-cooled inline-4 made about 115 horsepower and could push past 150 miles per hour, making it the fastest production bike on the planet in 1984. But it wasn't speed alone that made the GPZ legendary, it was the balance. Kawasaki engineered a lightweight chassis, a wind tunnel-tested fairing, and a silky smooth 6-speed gearbox that made it feel effortless at any pace. It was a superbike you could actually live with, comfortable, stable, and terrifyingly fast when provoked. The GPZ900R proved that performance didn't have to punish you, and comfort didn't have to be boring. Nearly 40 years later, it still looks sharp and rides beautifully, which is more than you could say for half the tech-savvy machines built today. Number 7. Honda CX500 Turbo 1982. The Honda CX500 Turbo was what happened when engineers were given total creative freedom and a blank check. It was the first turbocharged production motorcycle from Honda, and it looked like it had time traveled straight out of a science fiction movie. Underneath the futuristic fairing was a 497cc liquid-cooled V-twin with fuel injection, an intercooler, and a computer-controlled turbo system that boosted power to around 82 horsepower. In 1982, that was nothing short of revolutionary. The CX500 Turbo wasn't built for everyone. It was complex, expensive, and demanded finesse to master that unpredictable turbo lag. But when it hit boost, it felt like you jumped into another dimension. The bike hummed at low speeds, then transformed into a rocket at mid-range. It was the perfect blend of madness and innovation, a rolling experiment that proved Honda wasn't afraid to take risks. Today's bikes might be refined, but few are as daring as this one was. Number 6. Suzuki GSX R1100 1987. The GSX R1100 wasn't built to make sense, it was built to dominate. When Suzuki rolled it out in 1987, it instantly became the king of the street. Powered by a 1052cc air-cooled inline-4 producing around 125 horsepower, this bike wasn't about precision, it was about intimidation. The GSX R1100 was big, raw, and brutally fast, the kind of machine that rewarded skill and punished arrogance. It borrowed its DNA from the 750 but turned every dial to 11. The engine had torque for days, the frame was aluminum, and the riding position felt like a full-on endurance racer's crouch. Every throttle twist came with commitment and consequences. Modern superbikes have more power and safety nets, but they'll never match the GSX-R's sheer violence. It was the last of the truly analog monsters, and it didn't care if you were ready. You just held on and hoped you were. Number 5. Yamaha Venture Royale 1200 1983. In an era obsessed with speed and horsepower, the Yamaha Venture Royale 1200 proved that comfort could be just as impressive as performance. Yamaha built this as their first true luxury tourer, a motorcycle designed not just to go fast, but to go far. Underneath all that chrome and leather was a liquid-cooled 1198cc V4 engine producing around 90 horsepower, smooth as silk and capable of devouring highways with ease. But it wasn't the power that made the Venture Royale special, it was the attention to detail. Adjustable air suspension, cruise control, an onboard computer, and even a stereo system in the early 1980s. This thing was basically a rolling time capsule of ambition. It looked like a spaceship, rode like a limousine, and lasted forever. Modern touring bikes might have Bluetooth and touchscreens, but none of them have the same soul or charm as Yamaha's Highway King. Number 4. Yamaha VMAX 1985. When Yamaha unveiled the VMAX in 1985, it wasn't trying to impress anyone, it was trying to scare them. This wasn't a sport bike or a cruiser, it was a straight-line monster built around one of the most outrageous engines of the decade. Its 1197cc liquid-cooled V4 made a staggering 145 horsepower, but what made it truly insane was Yamaha's V-Boost system. At 6,000 RPM, hidden intake valves opened, flooding the cylinders with extra air and fuel. The result? A surge of power so violent it felt like being kicked in the chest by a rocket. The VMAX wasn't designed for corners, it was designed for domination. It made no apologies for its weight, its thirst, or its attitude. It was a motorcycle for people who didn't want balance, They wanted chaos. Even today, nothing sounds or feels like a VMAX at full song. It was the 1980s distilled into metal and madness. Number 3. Honda VFR 750F, 1986. The Honda VFR 750F was the moment Honda got everything right. After early V4 models struggled with reliability, Honda went back to the drawing board and built an engine so over-engineered it became legendary. The 748cc liquid-cooled V4 produced around 80 horsepower, but that doesn't tell the story. It was buttery smooth, bulletproof reliable, and delivered its power with perfect precision. The gear-driven cams created a signature whine that's still one of the most beloved sounds in motorcycling. But the VFR wasn't just about the motor, it was the complete package. Its aluminum twin spar frame, balanced geometry, and comfortable ergonomics made it a genuine do-it-all machine. It could commute, tour, or tear up a track without breaking a sweat. Riders racked up hundreds of thousands of miles, and the bikes just kept going. It's no exaggeration to say that Honda has never quite matched the magic of the original VFR 750F. Number 2. Kawasaki GPZ 750 Turbo, 1984. The 1980s were full of crazy ideas, but Kawasaki's GPZ 750 Turbo might have been the best one that actually worked. This bike took the already fast GPZ 750 and bolted on a turbocharger big enough to scare the engineers who designed it. The result? 112 horsepower of unfiltered insanity and acceleration that could embarrass supercars. When that turbo spooled up, it didn't build power, it detonated it. Writers described the rush as being fired from a cannon, and they weren't exaggerating. But what made the GPZ 750 Turbo special was how refined it felt for something so wild. Kawasaki's digital fuel injection gave it smooth throttle response, and the chassis could actually handle the madness. It was unpredictable, sure, but that was the point. Modern bikes are fast, but few deliver that same moment of panic before the thrill. The GPZ 750 Turbo was living proof that sometimes a little danger makes everything better. Number 1. Honda CBX 1000, 1981. If there's one bike that defines the glorious excess of the 1980s, it's the Honda CBX 1000. Honda didn't build it to win races or meet sales targets. They built it to prove they could. The CBX's 1047cc inline 6 was a piece of mechanical art, with 6 carburetors, 24 valves, and a soundtrack that made everything else sound like background noise. At full song, it wasn't just loud, it was orchestral, a rolling symphony of speed and precision. Despite weighing close to 600 pounds, the CBX could run with the best of its day. It handled better than anyone expected and looked absolutely breathtaking with that massive engine jutting out on both sides. It was powerful, smooth, and absurd in the best way possible. No electronics, no filters, just 6 pistons doing exactly what they were born to do. Even now, no modern bike captures the same sense of awe. And that wraps up our ride through the wildest decade in motorcycling. The 1980s gave us machines that were fast, fearless, and full of character. Bikes that didn't need electronics to make your heart race. Which one would you bring back if you could? Drop your pick in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the legends that defined real riding. Until next time, keep it loud, keep it fast, and keep it classic.